So it's the weekend and I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things to do when the weather gets nice, and that's some live fire cooking. So what we're going to go over is just my basic setup and some basic equipment that you'll need. I've watched some great cooks, chefs, barbecue guys do some great cooking over live fire, and this is the way that I've found works the best for me. I've got a fire pit at home. I built this and I love to use it for fires, and I adapted my cooking method to this kind of fire pit. So I'll go over everything I got with you right now. So here I've got some heavy duty leather work gloves. These are great because you want something nice and fire resistant to keep you safe when you're messing with all this stuff. I've got a basic, this is just a cheap kind of camp cooking grill that I bought. I didn't need it to be fancy, it's just more of a base for everything else I've got. Here I've got some grill grates from my grill. You can buy these or you can just take them off your grill and throw them over here. But I wanted something that was cast iron that's gonna have a little bit better heat retention and something that I know is really nice to cook on. And then here I've got a cast iron plancha, or a griddle. So this is just your basic cast iron griddle. I like it for retaining heat, and it stays hot. Once you get it warm, it's gonna stay warm. It's gonna cook everything beautifully, get a nice char on it. And then I've built a fire. I let this thing get blazing, big, hot fire, and then I've kind of pulled it down. So now I've got just embers down here. Basically, I made my own charcoal, and this is good. It's nice and hot. I've got a few different zones that I'm working from. I got a super hot zone, and then I've got a kind of cooler zone to the side. And then in back, I've got my kind of fire on deck. This is some of the stuff that was hot. I put it aside because if I need more flames, if I need a flare up, if I need more heat, I can pull that in. Otherwise, I've got it sitting back there for now. And then that's it. That's the setup that I'm gonna use. And then I'm gonna do some corn, carrots, and steaks on this. I've got everything out that I need to cook. So I'm gonna start with things that take the longest. Those I wanna get in the fire first. So first of all, I've got my corn. I'm just gonna get that right on the edges in the embers. It's in the husk. I didn't do anything to it, but maybe just give it a quick rinse. And I'm just getting this right in the fire. So this will cook right in its own husk. It'll steam and you might get a little char out of it. Next, I've got some carrots that I just lightly oiled and put some salt and pepper and thyme on. Thyme I had. If you don't have it, you don't need to use it. No big deal. It just goes really nicely with carrots. So I got the cut side down first because this is where I'm going to get a little bit of char and develop a lot of flavor. The other thing I've got here is I've got some garlic, and then I've got some ramps. So we have this great recipe for a charred scallion sauce for steaks. Well, I didn't have any scallions, but it's springtime here in Ohio, so I just happened to know a spot where I could grab some ramps. So I went and I got some ramps to replace scallions in this recipe. So I'm just gonna go ahead and char those, and I'm gonna get the garlic roasting. So the garlic's still in its skin. That'll protect it a little bit from the direct fire. And then these ramps, I'm gonna char over these flames, and then I'll throw them in a blender. And in that blender, I'll add a couple other ingredients with that roasted garlic and make a nice herby sauce for the steaks. The carrots are gonna take a little time to cook. I wanna develop a nice char, just leave them alone. Same with the corn. So we'll wait a few minutes before we even touch the steaks to make sure our veggies are getting good and done. So the first thing I'm gonna take off are my ramps. I see that they've got a good char level. They're not super crispy, but they got a good deep brown and a little black spot, and that's all right. I like having that flavor. So I'll pull those off, and we'll get those in a blender with the rest of the ingredients for sauce, and then my garlic's looking pretty good and roasted too. So I'll pull those as well. Now my carrots, I'm trying to leave alone. I want to develop a little caramelization on those. I'm just letting those go. And then I've been flipping this corn just ever so slightly when I see it start to get black. It's all right, the corn inside's just fine, but I do want to burn most of that husk. That's kind of telling me that it's cooking well. So I just keep rotating that corn until I kind of get black all around on all that husk. That means it's cooked on all sides. Now that my veggies that take a little longer to cook are about ready, I'm gonna put the steaks on. Now I've seen that my corn is tender to the touch, so I kind of move that to the side while keeping it warm. And my carrots have got a little caramelization on that initial side. So now is a good time to put on the steaks. The other thing I did was I incorporated some of those logs that I had on deck. because I want to get a nice sear on the steak. So I pulled a couple of those logs in onto my embers where I don't want a huge flame, but I do want more heat, a little higher buildup so that I can get those steaks nice and seared. So I've pulled my corn out of the fire. I got my rancid garlic here. Steaks are definitely done. Sizzling, got a nice char on it there. And then I'll get these carrots and we'll go inside and plate all this up family style and just have a really nice open fire cooked dinner. First thing I'll do is just make this sauce. So I just threw all the ingredients in a blender with a good amount of oil. And I'll just kind of get whipping around here. All right, turn up the speed and just get a nice puree for this sauce. So I've allowed these to cool down for a while because they're gonna be extremely hot coming out of the fire, obviously. So the first thing I'll do is rather than to go at the silk end, I'll cut off the end from the stalk. And then I'll just kind of pull it to get this husk off. Rather than going from the silk end, because you're gonna, by doing it this way, you're gonna keep all the silk, or at least the majority of it, with the husk. It's gonna be a little bit cleaner to pull off than trying to pull from the other end. So you see you get a little bit of char there, and it's just perfectly cooked corn that's a little bit smoky and a little bit charred. There you go. It's a whole meal cooked over an open fire. I've got my certified Angus beef ribeye with a little bit of charred ramp sauce, which is a variation of my charred scallion sauce that we have on our website. And then I just served my carrots here with a chili yogurt, plain Greek yogurt with a little bit of chili in there to give it a little spice, a little bit of sourness to complement the sweetness of the carrots. And then on the corn, I made a quick chipotle butter. Just melted some butter, mixed it with some chipotle, glazed all that corn to give it a little spice and a little flavor. And all of it cooked over the open fire. And I hope that you've learned a little bit about cooking open fire. And I hope that you'll try some of this at home because it really makes it entertaining and fun. And let me tell you, you'll smell like smoke in the end, but it's worth it.